Today we're going to read Curious George Discovers the Ocean. I wonder what Curious George is going to find in the ocean. Lots of fish? Sharks? Coral? Sand? What else could he find in the ocean besides sea creatures? What else is there? Well, let's find out. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Do you want to hear about the time George discovered the ocean? It's hard to believe, but the story starts in the sky. George had always dreamed of flying, so this was his lucky night. Sorry to pick you up late, Professor Wiseman said, but a miniature weather satellite just crashed from space. It needs to be found right away, and I think you can help. So he's in a helicopter, and he needs to help them find the satellite that crashed in the ocean. George and the man with the yellow hat watched from the helicopter as their house got smaller and smaller below. They passed the city, the country, and the beach. Soon they were flying over the ocean. Guess who spotted the ship first? Yes, George. See the ship? There's the Einstein Pizza research ship just ahead, the man said. So there's the ship. Here's a little fact. Did you know there are satellites above Earth? They take pictures of how the clouds move. Weather scientists called meteorologists use this information to guess when storms will come. You've probably seen satellite photos on weather reports on TV or online. So we use satellites. They're like big things up in the air that help us to see and learn things about the weather. Professor Einstein and Professor Pizza looked worried. They explained the situation to George. The satellite splashed down close by, but no one is sure exactly where. It might have broken in the crash. So they're looking at a map of where they're at, and they're trying to see if they can mark off spots that they've searched so that they can figure out where it is. That doesn't sound good, does it? What if the information and the photographs the satellite have gathered were lost? Should we help them look for it? The man asked. George couldn't wait to begin. He was ready to help. Did you know a research ship is a floating laboratory? Some are designed for day trips, but others are home to researchers for weeks or months. Polar research ships can even sail through frozen seas, so they travel through the ocean where it's cold. Can you imagine being captain of a ship that can move through ice? Where would you go? So these guys, Pizza and Einstein, those guys right there, they are traveling on their research ship, and that is helping them to learn things about the ocean. If they were going to search the ocean floor for the satellite, they would need to take Pizza and Einstein's submarine, which is like a boat that goes under the water so they can look at things. First, a helicopter, and now a sub. See how they're underneath the water? Today was turning into a big adventure. Did you know sub is short for submarine? Submarines can travel underwater, like we mentioned. Most subs are long and rounded on both ends, which helps them to move easily through the water. A small sub may have room for only one person and stay underwater for a few hours. Subs as long as 500 feet can stay underwater for up to 6 months. That's a long time. What do you think George saw through the sub's windows? There were so many things to look at. Fish, plants. Okay, George, the man said, keep your eyes peeled for that satellite. Did you know sonar uses sound waves to see objects underwater? The sonar in George's sub sends out sound waves. It can find the satellite underwater by reading the way the sound waves bounce off objects nearby and return to the ship. George tried to pay attention. Soon the submarine sonar began to beep. Had they found the satellite already? That's not the satellite, George, Professor Wiseman said. Look, the sonar had found a giant sea turtle. Did you know leatherback turtles are the largest of all turtles? They can live for more than 50 years and can be found all over the world. Males rarely leave the ocean, but a female swims up onto the beach every 2 to 3 years to lay eggs in the sand. Later, after she leaves, the baby sea turtles hatch, dig out of the sand, and head for the sea. It wasn't long before the sonar found the real satellite. We're getting close, Professor Wiseman said. But hold on, we have a problem. The satellite is inside the coral reef, meaning it's gonna be hard to get. Oh no, there was only one way into the reef, through a tiny passage. The sub was much too big to fit. George was so disappointed. Remember, a coral reef is like a forest under the water, except instead of being soft and wavy and squishy and stuff like leaves, like easy to move, they're kind of like hard. Did you know coral may look like plants and rocks, but it's actually made up of tiny animals? Did you know that? They're made out of animals. The animals are called coral polyps. Though reefs are made up of very small animals, they can be huge. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest of all, more than 1,400 miles long. The team returned to the research ship to make a new plan. If the sub was too big to get into the reef, they need something smaller. Do they have any ideas? George had one. He was small enough to fit through the opening. With a scuba suit, George could swim in, explore the coral reef, and get the satellite. So he's thinking about getting in a suit like that. George's scuba suit fit just right. Your helmet contains a camera, microphone, and headphones. This locator will flash when you're close to the satellite, Professor Wiseman explained. We'll be able to see you on our monitor and speak to you the whole time. Are you ready? George was ready and excited. Did you know SCUBA stands for Self-Contained Underwater Breathing Apparatus? George's scuba suit includes an air tank, which will give him the oxygen he needs to breathe underwater. The wetsuit will keep him warm in the cold ocean. If you've ever swum underwater with your eyes open, you know George needs his mask to keep his eyes clear so he can see. Otherwise, he won't be able to find that satellite. George swam all over the coral reef until he spotted an opening. Once he swam inside, he couldn't believe his eyes. Can you believe how many animals live inside the coral reef? Did you know coral reefs are home to some of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth? That means many different kinds of life, plants and animals live there all together, relying on one another for food. A reef can be home to thousands of different creatures. Think of them as the rainforests of the ocean. Remember I told you it's like a big forest underwater. With so many new creatures swimming around him, George never expected to run into someone he recognized. Exploring the coral reef was so much fun that George almost forgot why he was there until he was distracted by a beeping sound. What could it be? Beep, 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 beep. His locator, it was flashing. You're getting close to the satellite, George, Professor Wiseman said. George and his new friend swam deeper. Who did he find? Giant sea turtle? George looked and looked. The satellite must be here somewhere. Suddenly, George noticed what was behind him. It was right there. He had finally found the satellite. Professor Wiseman flew her helicopter over the reef and lowered a rope down to the seafloor. George grabbed on, and he and the satellite rode out of the water, up to the helicopter and back to the research ship. George was happy that he found the satellite, but still, if it was broken, all that work and searching would be for nothing. When they got back to the ship, Einstein and Pizza checked the satellite. It's in great shape, Professor Pizza said. Not a scratch on it, shouted Professor Einstein. The research was saved. All thanks to George. Ahoy, George, they called to him from the ship. What was George doing? It had been quite a day. George got to fly in a helicopter, and that was fun, but he decided swimming in the ocean was even better, because in the sky, there are no sea turtles. Pretty cool, huh, guys? So, there's all kinds of research they do about our oceans all the time. We learn lots of things about the animals that live there, how they live, and the other things, the plant life that lives there, and the bacteria, and all that stuff that can sometimes help us or hurt us. So, it's important for them to do this research so we can learn more about our world that we live in and the world that our creatures live in. Have a great day.